let's talk about expression of ideas transition words. This will be the second to last question type you see in the verbal section, so let's dig into them a little bit. If you've hung in there with me for the words in context video, if not, definitely go back and watch it. That's the first thing you're going to see in the verbal section. We're going to use a similar technique of anticipating what word goes in the blank based on the rest of the sentence. But this time we're going to be anticipating in one of three categories: contrast, cause and effect, or similarity and continuation. Again, these are not strict categories. Sometimes things can maybe land in both categories or be more specifically outside of one of the categories. But generally speaking, it's going to land pretty close to one of these. So they're great areas to send your focus and look. So here are some examples of contrast words: although, in contrast, instead, nevertheless, on the other hand, while, yet. This is by no means a complete list of transition words that are contrasting, but it's a good start. What I'm going to recommend is in your notes, if you notice another contrasting transition word that's not in here, go ahead, put it on here. Or if you learn a new word that's a transition word, absolutely note it down. Learning transition words is a little bit like learning vocabulary, so studying them is a great idea. We also have cause and effect transition words. Words like as a result, because, consequently, since, so, therefore, thus. We also have similarity and continuation words. Additionally, finally, for example, furthermore, indeed, in fact, that is. Those are all words that say what we are going to continue to say is strongly related to what we just said in a similar sort of way. Cause and effect, on the other hand, this guy right here, is saying that the first part of the sentence resulted in or caused the second part of the sentence. So think about it like building a bridge. Know what you're coming from. Really think about what it's saying. Think about what you're going to. Anticipate the relationship between the sentences and then eliminate any answer choice that doesn't give you that. So let's take a look. Let's give a read to this one. This guy here will have a contrasting transition word, and we'll see why. It says Alexander Lawrence Posey, 1873 to 1908, varied his focus and tone depending on the genre in which he was writing. In his poetry, he used heartfelt language to evoke beauty and peacefulness of his natural surroundings. In his journalism, he employed humor and satire to comment on political issues affecting his Muskogee Creek community. The question will always ask which choice completes the text with the most logical transition. So let's see what kind of clues we're getting. Just like with the words in context, we're looking for clues that'll tell us what the blank should be. So what do we know? He varied his focus and tone depending on the genre. So for this first genre, poetry, he used heartfelt language to evoke beauty and peacefulness of his natural surroundings. So I'm going to stay with the heartfelt language because we're talking about he varied his focus and tone. So let's see the varying focus, heartfelt language for talk about beauty and peacefulness. And then we shift and talk about journalism, and he's doing humor and satire to comment on political stuff. Tell me, are these things the same or different? Heartfelt language, humor, and satire. That's different. Beauty and peacefulness, political issues, that's different. So we're going to want a contrasting transition to say first we were doing heartfelt, beautiful, peaceful, whatevers. But then for journalism, he did humor and satire. So that is, when we see that means I'm going to just rephrase what I just said. I'm not rephrasing, I'm saying something different. So that gets an X. Granted means is kind of like a contrast word, but what it really means is, yes, I did say that thing before, but now I'm going to say something that might appear to contradict, even though it doesn't fully contradict. So here, we're not contradicting what we just said or giving an exception to what we just said. We're actually saying something different. So we're going to give that one an X. Similarly means I'm going to say something similar. This is not similar. This is different. So we're going to cross it out. By contrast, absolutely says we're contrasting. We're showing one thing, then we're showing something that's different from that thing. So that's absolutely going to be our answer. Let's look at one that shows similarity. In a heated debate in biogeography, The field is divided between dispersalists and vicariancists. I think that's how you say that word. No points for pronunciation. Blank, there are those who argue that dispersal is the most crucial determining factor in a species distribution, and those who insist that vicariance, separation due to geographic barriers, is. Biogeographer Isabelle Saint-Martin counts herself among neither. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? Well, let's think about what it says. The first part says we got this divided field. We have dispersalists and vicariancists. Vicariancists. I think it's vicariancists. Yeah, that's going to get me. So we then go on to say there are people who focus on dispersal that think they're that's the most important, crucial factor. And we also have these guys who think it has something to do with geographic barriers. Yeah. So again, what we're noticing is it's not like before we had, one color on one side and a different color on the other side. Here we're saying, oh, I was talking about these two things, and then I go on to talk about those two things and just further describe their contrast that we set up here. So what I'm talking about second, after the blank, is just more specifics about what happened before. So I want a transition word that's going to be similarity, continuation. Let me know that what I just talked about, I'm going to say more about it. Not something different, but more on the same topic, and not something additional to it. Again, just something more on the same topic. So furthermore is a continuation, but it's not saying more on the same topic. It's saying another different thing that's connected to the first thing. So that's not the transition that we want. By contrast gives a contrast. We're not saying something different here. We're just further explaining this thing that we just said. So we're going to say no to that guy. Similarly means I'm going to get something similar, but not the same. Really here, we're talking about the exact same thing, just in more words, further explanation. That's where the transition that is comes in, meaning I'm going to say the exact same thing I said before, but in different words. And that's what we get here, just a further, more in-depth explanation. Now, a special kind of similarity is the cause and effect relationship, where what comes before the blank causes what comes after. Let's look at an example of that here. Tulip mania, the rapid rise and sudden fall of the price of tulip bulbs in 17th century Amsterdam, is often cited as an example of the perils of rampant market speculation. However, recent research has demonstrated that the episode was neither as frenzied nor as disastrous as had been thought. The popular myth surrounding it blank should be regarded with some skepticism. So let's think to ourselves what we have here, and we'll try to find which choice completes the text with the most logical transition. That first sentence here says we have tulip mania, right? And it's perils of rampant market speculation, things going crazy, right? Then it says, however, contrasting already, they're giving us an example of a good contrast. Things going, perils of rampant market speculation, things are going crazy. However, now we have a contrast. Recent research has demonstrated that it wasn't frenzied or disastrous. And then, even though the transition word comes later in the sentence, transition words always connect to the sentence that comes before. So actually, we don't need to worry too much about that first sentence here. How does the idea that it really wasn't as frenzied or disastrous as people thought, how does that relate to the idea that now we're saying that myth should be regarded with skepticism? Well, finding research that what we used to think was true turned out not to be true, what relationship would that have to us becoming skeptical? Well, finding out that something's not true makes you skeptical of it, makes you not believing of it, which would set up the cause, this part is the cause, and the effect relationship, right? So we're going to look for a cause and effect transition word. For example means we're going to get an example. No, we didn't get an example, we got an effect, so that's not the one. By contrast means we got something different. No, we got something that followed from the first thing, that was caused by the first thing, not that something different. So we're going to give that one an X. Nevertheless is also a contrasting connector. It says, ignore what I said before. I'm going to say something a little bit different, not what we want. And then therefore. Therefore means this first thing was the cause of the second thing. So that is the transition that we want here. It's going to be very important for you to learn your transition words. They are tiny little bits of vocabulary, and the transition word might be unknown to you, especially if it's weird. Don't stress. Keep a running list when you're reading, when you're working on your SAT, when you're running practice of any transition word you're not 1,000% sure of the definition. Look it up, Google them, see them used around you. Call, text me for examples. I'm always happy to chat about transition words. Now make sure you get in a little practice. Okay, let's get some practice. Let's see what kind of transition word we want here. Let's see if we can anticipate what it should be. In 1815, while in exile in Jamaica, Venezuelan revolutionary Simon Bolivar penned a letter praising England's Republican government and expressing hope that Latin American nations seeking independence from Spain might achieve something similar. The letter was addressed to a local merchant, Henry Cullen. Though Bolivar's goal was to persuade political leaders from England and Europe to support his cause. If we're thinking about which choice completes the text with the most logical transition, remember, the transition word is always making a transition to what comes right before it. So, what's the relationship between a letter addressing the local merchant, and though we have a little bit of a contrast here, the ultimate goal was to persuade political leaders from England and Europe to support his cause? I think I might have given it away a little bit. We're thinking about this is what he did, but this was the goal. Which transition word says that this is our goal? Let's take a look. Additionally would be incorrect because it uses a transition that indicates that addition of an agreeing idea. However, the second part of the sentence actually disagrees with the first part. It's a different goal. We're not going for local. We're going for England and Europe, somewhere else, right? And not a merchant. I'm going to get a little, so I can do some circling. It's not a local merchant, it's political leaders. So that's contrasting, not adding agreeing information. So we can cross that guy out. Looking at B fits what we're thinking of. Ultimately means in the long run or at the highest level. So although Bolivar wrote to a local merchant, his goal at the end of the day was to reach the political leaders. Therefore, ultimately fits perfectly in this context. If we look at accordingly, that's C uses a cause and effect transition. Accordingly, this thing happened. Accordingly, because of this other thing, the next thing happened, right? Bolivar's writing of the letter to Cullen would not cause him to have a goal of persuading European powers to support him. So we can say that C is incorrect. Looking at D, consequently is also a cause and effect transition. Again, like we said, Bolivar writing the letter to Cullens did not cause him to have this goal. That was the goal all along. So consequently would not be the right transition. So we'll go for ultimately on this one, again, because of the word goal. Remember, sometimes eliminating wrong answers is the best way to find the right answer. Let's try another one. For years, biologists have experimented with using grime-eating bacteria rather than harsh chemicals to clean artworks, and the results have been impressive overall. These bacterial strains, which can metabolize centuries worth of oil, glue, dirt, and other surface impurities without creating harmful byproducts, have proven more effective than traditional chemical cleaning methods. So let's look at the sentence and see if we could think about the relationship here. It's saying we're doing this thing. We're doing these things. We're experimenting with these grime-eating bacteria rather than harsh chemicals. And what does the second part say? They have proven more effective. It's awesome. We're doing this thing. It's awesome. Is that contrasting, cause and effect, or is it similarity, continuation? What kind of things is it? Well, to me, I would say something like, well, we're trying this thing, and when it happens, it's awesome. So let's see if we can look at our answer choices and eliminate the wrong ones. Again, don't put pressure on yourself to land exactly on the right one. You might not have guessed the right answer choice, and that's not important. The important thing is to know what you're looking for so you can get rid of what you're not looking for. So answer choice A would be incorrect because this gives us a contrast. We'd say we're experimenting with this, but now we're not experimenting with this, or but it was bad, or something like that. We don't want a contrasting transition word here because that includes a disagreement. But this sentence actually agrees with the previous sentence. Both claim that grime-eating bacteria are better at cleaning artwork than chemicals. So that guy is out. Now, B says in many cases. So the first sentence claims that using the grime-eating bacteria led to impressive overall results. The second part claims that they have proven more effective. Again, those are saying the same things, right? So we want a transition that shows agreement between the two. The second part supports the first part. It's almost like giving an example or proof that the first part was true. In many cases, it's almost, when we say in many cases, it's like we're giving a case and an example, like a point that proves the first part. So we're going to keep that one in because that shows the right relationship. Choice C would be incorrect because that choice uses a cause and effect transition. The fact that the results of the experiment have been impressive overall doesn't cause the bacteria to have been proven more effective. So we wouldn't have being impressive causing it to be more effective. It's not like, oh, wow, that was super cool and now it works even better. No. The impressiveness doesn't cause the effectiveness. So as a result, doesn't make sense here. Choice D is incorrect because this is a transition that indicates an addition of a new idea. When we say additionally, we mean an addition of a new idea. But this sentence doesn't introduce a new idea. It just talks about the same idea that we talked about before, describing the impressive results in more detail, right? So again, additionally, we're not adding on something new, so not that guy. We'll go with B. Let's look at the next one. It has long been thought that humans first crossed a land bridge into the Americas approximately 13,000 years ago. Blank, based on radiocarbon dating of samples uncovered in Mexico, a research team recently suggested that humans may have arrived more than 30,000 years ago, much earlier than previously thought. So let's see which choice completes the text with the most logical transition. Let's not look at the answer choices just yet. Let's see if we can anticipate their relationship, okay? So the first part, what does it say? That they crossed 13,000 years ago, and now we're saying 30,000 years ago? Much earlier than previously thought? That sounds like we're saying something different. So I'm going to be looking for a contrasting connector. A is incorrect because as a result shows that the theory in this sentence is a result of the theory discussed in the previous sentence, that the theory that it happened 30,000 years ago is caused by people thinking it happened 13,000 years ago. No. We just found some new stuff, and that's what made us change our minds about that. But it's not like the first part of the sentence caused the second part. So cross that out. B says similarly. That means we're getting something that's the same. And that's incorrect because it signals that the theory in this sentence is similar to the one in the previous sentence, where actually we're saying totally different theories and they contrast. So we don't want that one. However, best answer because it gives us the contrast that we're looking for, the contrast between the two theories that say wildly different times. And D would be incorrect because in conclusion shows that the theory in the sentence concludes or summarizes the discussion of the previous theory, but it contrasts it, not summarizes it. So that one's going to be incorrect. So I think we've found it. Let's pause here with these examples, and you can always continue on your own with this drill and look at the explanations from the College Board.